Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the America's Mayor Live 500 and something edition. Welcome. It's a sad day. It's a sad day because it's the day after the Vice President of the United States. I don't know if she committed a crime. Some people think she did by using the vice presidential office, the vice presidential home, all of the insignia of the vice president's office, not only to engage in partisan politics, but to engage in the maybe one of the worst things an American candidate has ever done, which is to deliberately put the life of her opponent in jeopardy, which is what happened last night or yesterday. I mean, you've got to be an absolute a fool, and it's possible she is. It's possible. I mean, I'm willing to entertain the possibility that she's so stupid that she didn't realize what she was doing. But whoever engineered this did, because it was engineered. The night before this poor excuse for an American citizen uh, did this and put Donald Trump's life in further jeopardy, uh, the biggest dodo in the history of the American presidency, sounding like a guy, going through rehab at an old folks' home. Decided to say, after having promised that he would never try to influence the Justice Department, that Donald J. Trump should be locked up. Of course, it really is the strangest thing in the world because if there's anybody in this country that needs to be locked up, it's him on two grounds. First, he read my book. You can get it now. You can pre-order it on Amazon called The Biden Crime Family, and you'll see why he's committed more crimes. I'm just going to imagine than any man that's ever occupied that office, or God willing, will ever occupy it. And number two, I mean, it is possible he's at such a state now they should lock him up for his own good. I mean, this guy could walk off a cliff. When he starts turning and walking, when you listen to him last night, it was like you were listening to a guy.
Every single one thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able, if need be, if it was the case, to actually physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who he believes to be a threat to him. I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like I said
Translate that for me.
5 years ago. You'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Political lock him up.
What is that? What is he talking about? The civil servants he wants to kill? Trump wants to kill the civil servants? I'm sorry. I'm not the best at picking out. I'm bad with except the Italian accent because I am Italian, I guess, which I do a pretty good job of imitating. Except for the Italian accent, I'm not good with accents. Um, and I don't know what he said something weird about uh, Trump wants to do something to the civil servants, and then he wants to shoot people. And then he pronounces as maybe again, we're at a stage now where if you were to say, oh, he misused his office of president by pronouncing that a man should be put in jail, one could argue that he doesn't know that he's president. It is if I were his lawyer and you charged him with that, I'd plead complete insanity. And as a fair-minded person on a jury, I don't know. I might vote that he's insane. It's a shame because he should go to jail on a racketeering charge for the rest of his life for the 50 million he took half of while he was a stumblebum senator, a ridiculously horrible vice president. You'll see in my book that a large core of the RICO case is what I call the point man case. Every time Obama, who was absolutely aware of his corruption, and approved of it. If he didn't approve of it, he would have gotten rid of him. I mean, it was written in language that no one could misunderstand in the New York Times in December of 2015. And I will accuse Obama of many things, maybe even, no, not worse things than Biden. He wasn't as big a crook as Biden. Maybe more of a traitor. The money laundering crimes with the Ayatollah are pretty damn serious. But this guy, the night before she appears with all the regalia of the vice presidency to announce that that Donald Trump is Hitler, words that could easily inspire his murder. This guy decides he should be put in jail. But enjoying it, he sounds like he's got gone completely. You know, he's still the president. It doesn't frighten you that he's still the president. That guy, you know, if that guy were at a nursing home and they had like a little special nursing home council and he was the head of it, they'd remove him for being unfit for being head of the nursing home council of nursing home residents. Well, I think I had gone over it on my earlier show. I don't know if you saw my earlier show or not, but I'll summarize it. And it's summarized best as something I read there by someone who, when the history of this era is written, will, along with Michael Goodwin and John Solomon and maybe a few other people, be really heroes of journalism. I mean that. A couple of statues, those are 3 statues that should be at the Columbia School of Journalism when it becomes a school again. She says about Kamala Harris, she just invited more assassination attempts on her political rival. You call somebody Hitler, it's a dog whistle. That's their word, not mine. It's a dog whistle to encourage murder. And Miranda goes on to say she has green-lighted future efforts to murder him with her carefully scripted, deliberately delivered official message from the official vice presidential residence in Washington, D.C., using an American flag as her backdrop, just to add an obscene flourish. Can you write better than that? You can't. I can't. That's why they're my heroes. Actually, it isn't just their writing ability. And in the case of all 3 of them, they happen to be fabulous writers. Michael is gifted with the English language, and so is John. But I have investigated cases with some of the best investigators in the world. I may say many from the FBI. FBI agency that I dealt with was legendary. Great men and women. Totally besmirched by what's there now. Harris has incited violence against her political opponent. It is a logical, inevitable, predicted outcome of her carefully chosen words. It's no coincidence that her pernicious press statements came shortly after Biden said of Trump, "We've got to lock him up." All based on Kelly and the sister of the soldier who apparently was, according to them, attacked by Trump, has come forward to say none of it is true. Kelly's lying. And she emphasized the unfairness of everything that was done by making sure that on the day that she delivered her letter, she went and voted for Donald Trump. This is a woman who cares about her country, obviously loves her sister, and doesn't want her sister's memory to be destroyed by these traitors. So let's, one of the big issues in this campaign, it's funny how issues emerge out of I shouldn't say left field or right field because that means something else now. But they come up and you never would expect it. I don't know why this occurs to me, and all of you are going to think I'm a real old man when I say this, but this is good for history, for your history lessons for today. In 1960, one of the Nixon and Kennedy were criticized actually as Me Too candidates, meaning there was very little difference in terms of their positions. This really is because they came out of this. They both were veterans of the Second World War. I believe both in the Navy. They both were, if not friends, certainly acquaintances. But beyond acquaintances, they had traveled together for a period of time when they were members of Congress to debate each other over the Taft-Hartley bill, which was a landmark labor legislation. And it was really more in the nature of a panel discussion than a debate. I really doubt that they personally attacked each other during these things. They certainly didn't do it during their presidential debates, which, if you look back on it, were like tame. In fact, Nixon was thought to have really lost that first debate, not because he looked worse than Kennedy, because he hadn't used the proper makeup, which is true. He did, and he was tired. But he began many of his, and I haven't listened to the debate in a long time, so this is because I have a great memory. And I thought he was losing it by doing this as a kid. He began a lot of his answers by saying, "Well, I agree with Senator Kennedy on that point." And after a while, you started saying to yourself, "Well, why? If you agree with him on that, why don't we take the real thing? Why don't we take Kennedy?" And they did get criticized as being, and you look at him now, I'm looking at a picture of him. Did you have him on? If you put him on, he really didn't look that bad.
No, it's actually ridiculous.
I don't know.
That's fake. I actually think it's fake news.
I do remember. I remember from then, as a teenager or wherever I was, I remember a little bit of sweat on his lip, on his over here. It was a little bit. It wasn't much. Yeah, no, you don't
This is
read
the third one. This is the third
I'm not even sure you. Is it the third one?
Yeah, let's pick up the first
No,
one.
no. You see, he did actually much better.
He looks better here.
You can't say that I remember. Well, they probably realized what they had done wrong in the first debate. But I do remember it was thought that he had. Here was a common a common conclusion of the time, that Kennedy won it on television and that Nixon won it on radio. That Nixon had made the better substantive points. I can't tell you I remember it well enough to tell you if that's true. And I was rooting for Kennedy, but not terribly opposed to Nixon. My father and mother were of different. My mother was a Republican, and my father was a Democrat, but they were both Roman Catholics, and they voted Roman Catholic. They did. My dad, of course, would have voted for John Kennedy anyway. He was a Democrat supporter of the New Deal social programs, but a very, very fierce enemy of communism, and someone who had great worries about Roosevelt. Similar to this man, if you see on television now, John Kennedy, this man's father was very much afraid of Roosevelt's connections to communism. So was my father, of course, in a much different position. My mother, as I said, was a Republican, so her social views were, against the New Deal. She thought, and turned out to be right, that the New Deal was the beginning of a new type of slavery, and she also thought, not terribly more strongly, but as strongly as my father, the Democrat, that Roosevelt had been misled by Alger Hiss and the communists that surrounded him, that gave away this country at Yalta. And John Kennedy, the man you there, believed that too. I'm going to ask you sometime to do me a favor and you'll do yourself a favor. Get Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book and read it about Fauci. It's one of the best, most powerful indictments I've ever read. But in that book, and I'm going to get it out again and find the pages for you. There's an excellent analysis of communism, which, and I haven't said this to Bobby, but it could be written by his grandfather about Roosevelt and communism and Wilson. But in any event, at the beginning of the last show, I gave a rather impassioned. I didn't really want to. I just got into it because my emotions are pretty high right now. I don't want to say this, and I had always hoped that I never had a. We've become a communist country by all indicia of. Now, are we deeply communist? No. Do people think we are? Probably not. But in many ways, there are certain things about us that are more communist in communist countries. We don't have a free press. If you think we have a free press, you are deluding yourself. To this day, my colleagues and I, we get censored when we say things that they don't agree with. I was censored and thrown off YouTube. I don't remember if it was when I produced the hard drive or when I said that the vaccine wasn't a vaccine. Now, let's face it, on both, I was right and they were wrong. They were wrong. I had 1 point something million, 1.7 followers, 7 million followers. It all got destroyed because I said something that offended them. That turns out now to be true and something that needed to be said at the time desperately. That's not America that we used to have. That's not respect for freedom of speech. Less than a majority of our college students believe in free speech anymore because the Marxist professors taught them not to. People like Tampon Tim, who was trained by Red China to groom our children, taught them that whatever ideology they have, warped ideology they have, which they may or may not know as communism, is more important than free speech. It sure as hell is more important than God. God doesn't belong here. We made that clear, or they made that clear, particularly the socialist, communist, dictatorial Democrat governors when they closed down church for Easter and the high holy days, synagogues, but they kept the strip joints open. Oh, they're Democrats. You don't, my goodness. I mean, you saw what Kamala did the other day when she threw out the two people that mentioned our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. She said, and I think very directly, probably the most honest thing she said in the whole campaign, you don't belong here. You believe in Jesus, you don't belong in this political party. Go down the hall, go down the street to the other political party. Well, by the way, we'll take you. Believe in Jesus, believe in Judaism. You're a good Muslim. We'll take you. We'll love you. If you love God and serve God, gosh almighty, I have great respect for you. And if you're a person who is an agnostic and you doubt the existence of God, but you lead a good life, I was taught from the time I was a child as a very strict Roman Catholic to respect you and to love you and to believe that you had a way to salvation through an enormously beneficent God. Now, this is not part of Catholic theology, Christian theology, Jewish, or anything else. This is Rudy Giuliani's theology. I believe if you're an atheist, there's something wrong with you. I don't mean morally, I mean intellectually. And you can easily fall into being a communist because this is how Marx fell into being a communist, and this is how Adam and Eve fell, and this is how Satan, who was an angel, fell. Arrogance. You believe you're smarter than God. And you see anything else suggesting that something smarter than you is an insult. If you read Marx carefully, and I did as a youngster, I took a course just on communist philosophy. I minored in philosophy. And Marx was insulted that there'd be an intellect greater than his, namely God. And, part of the theory of Adam and Eve or maybe mythology, maybe biblical reality, I can't remember, was that, wasn't it the tree of knowledge? I think it was the tree of knowledge, right? That the apple came from. And if you ate that apple, one of the inducements that the devil gave you was that you would know more than God. You'd be above God. Do you know that Marx is a Satanist and believes that, and believed in many ways, one, that God was the opiate of the people, that the rich and the powerful, right, use God as a way to subject the people, and number two, that used God to not allow the people to be able to use their minds to see that they could do better, because the people were, and he in particular, because the people couldn't see this, uh, he could, he had a bigger mind than God and was like Satan. So a lot of this is intellectual arrogance, and boy, can you see it on the far left, right? So the reason I think that there's something wrong with you if you're an atheist is, y- y- um, I would not just admit. I mean, I would explain. I'd explain to you why it is so that you can't prove by the logic that I'm so much dedicated to the existence of God, but you can't prove the non-existence of God. Of course, you can't prove a negative at all, but you certainly can't prove that one. Because no matter how you go back and however far you want to go back, you got to tell me what was there. Big Bang. What banged? Nothing. Nothingness banged against nothingness. We got a big noise and matter appeared. That's a scientific explanation. I mean, that's out of a science fiction movie. So we get to the end of the road there, and that's why you can be an agnostic. You can say, "Well, I don't make the leap of faith." I agree that there are things going on beyond our intellect that we cannot understand, and maybe someday we will. So therefore, I just have to accept the fact that that there, we can't prove that God doesn't exist, and you can't prove that God exists. So I'm an agnostic. I'm a doubter. And the other position is that you make the leap of faith, like Kierkegaard, I believe, Soren Kierkegaard was the philosopher who first used that expression. Many, many others have. That reason takes you right up to the point of proving God's existence and the inevitability that there must be a God. But then there's a leap, maybe the grace given to you by God, and then you can see. So having you now have your Sunday sermon. That doesn't mean you don't have to go to church, because your minister, priest, or rabbi will be better than me at it. But I say that to you because uh, just think of the emphasis and the time that has been used, and the court time and the money to drive God out of America. You can't say a prayer at the beginning of school. Come on. Come on. You can't have a nativity scene in the town square. Come on. That's what they do. That's what they do in Islamic extremist countries. You know, if you ride through some of them, you're not going to see a cross. You're not going to see a Star of David. You're not going to see any of that. You may, in some of them, see a church. There may be churches, but they're not allowed to display as churches. And some of them, not many, will allow certain synagogues, but they're not going to display as synagogues. Um, so we need God back. I would argue to those who are agnostics, you need God back. God is the glue that holds morality together. and necessitates deep thinking about morality. Without God, we move away from morality. And there's no glue, and there's no major factor bringing us back. So we're not getting God back with Kamala. You saw what she did to those kids that interrupted her speech with an invocation to Jesus. She had a big satanic smile on her face when she did it. You know, send them down to that other place, the place that believes in God. I don't know if you're a believer. Now, can you vote for him? I mean, don't you want God back in America? You're not going to get it with you're not going to get it with Kamala. She's going to keep up. She's going to keep up without any doubt. She is going to keep up the campaign to drive God out of America and shut it down. You know, CBS has gone on a streak here where it has completely fallen off the cliff. To consider it a news organization is a disgrace. And if we ever want to recreate a new news organizations in America, and you know, with the exception of, well, I'll mention them. There aren't that many to mention, with the exception of Newsmax and Fox, and as Trump says in a very famous ad, they have their problems, but they have their problems and they have their strengths. The others just have problems. Newsmax is much more thoroughgoing, a real news organization. One American News, Real America's Voice, the network that I'm on, Frank Speech Network. And the latter ones are much smaller, obviously. I don't know, you know, they're networks, but they don't have the reach. In fact, except for Fox, which really challenges them, none of them have the reach. Newsmax is making a valiant effort to get there, and but I do want to say, if you take Fox and Newsmax, and then you take all the, let's just, for want of a better word, call them the independents, right? Whether it's an independent network like Frank Speech Network, or like Real America's Voice, or like a somewhat bigger One America's Voice, or just singular people, like, of course, Rogan, the biggest of all, or some of the other really wonderful, terrific podcasters and live podcasters. It's growing. And I wonder how many people, if I were to put that together as a group, and it would take a while to make sure I didn't leave one of my good friends out and therefore have him angry at me for the rest of my life. It's like inviting people to a wedding, right? You forget somebody. I wonder, Ted, I wonder what percentage of people, can we call it for a moment the alternative media? By that I mean Fox, Newsmax, One America's News, Real America's Voice, Frank's, Charlie Kirk. We go on and on, right? You know, other people we love and respect.
Right.
Louder with Crowder.
I don't want to call it alternative because
Okay,
it's just as popular now. Combined. What
shall we call them? The renegades, the insurgents.
The insurgents is good.
Should we call them
Anti-propagandist
the
media?
The First Amendment Brigade, whatever. That whole group of anti-communist,
Anti-propagandist,
ethical broadcasters who are anti-communist and pro-American.
Yeah.
You think 50% of the American people get their news from that? You think it's that high? I think it might be.
Maybe not 50.
What would you say? 50% are exposed to it.
Yeah.
In other words, they get something from it. I'm not going to say they listen to it like people
With
in the
X
old
now,
days
yeah.
would. My grandmother would put on CBS or ABC or NBC and listen to the soap operas, and then she'd be on there, and then the news would come on, and then people would either watch Cronkite or Dan Rather or one of those. Uh, as compared to the people that get their news from broadcast and from communist cable.
That's probably still a little bit more. You're right. Because
And then on the other
broadcast,
side, from the other, I am going to call them alternative, as alternative to what is enshrined as, what's supposed to be the thing you do in America, which is to listen to those communists. Do you think half of America is exposed to them, or less?
less, but not maybe four. Because I think there's a percentage of people that aren't looking, right? So they just get whatever comes about their day, and that's usually the broadcast media.
Take out for a minute people who have no interest in news. I mean, I've met people that don't know the damnedest thing.
Exactly. They're not exposed to it.
There are people, maybe it's a few percent, but there are people who don't know who the president is,
Yes.
whether it's with Trump or
Biden or Harris.
I mean, there are people like Biden who don't know who the president is.
But yeah, there are people.
So let's take out the completely uninformed, uninterested P-brain. People who get some form of news and therefore today know that Kamala Harris said that Trump is like Hitler.
I'd say 40%. 40% are exposed to what you call alternative
or the conservative. Yeah.
Well, at least hold on a second. What percent of the total percentage of people that are at least doing a little bit of, or consider themselves somewhat interested in the news? Not all of them, right? Because if you're just interested enough, you're still only getting the NBC, the ABC news clips, for example, online on the big outlets like on the big platforms like Google, because they boost the propagandist media.
And they are much more. All of that is still much more than the newspaper.
Yeah.
The newspaper is almost insignificant as a source of news any longer. It's like even the circulations of the big ones are 1 million, 2 million in a country of 340 million. Wow. I mean, we get audiences bigger than their circulation.
We do.
Sometimes, right?
We do.
So, but here's how they're important. I mean, let's not discount the Times, the Washington Post, or even the New York Post on our side. They do, and the Wall Street Journal. They do influence coverage by the networks. They are still
on people's phones.
Pardon me?
On people's phones when they go to their phone,
and they do
news pops up.
They do a little, whether it's valid or not. They do a little more work than the average just presenter on the internet.
Because they got resources.
So if we want to know, if right now we find out there was a bombing in Moscow, so none of these independents, no matter how good they are as journalists, can be able to. We're going to have to go to some kind of network to get that coverage. Right?
CNN's probably got an international bureau there.
We may. So there are times in which we've been forced to go to CNN.
So we'd hopefully get something from Fox or Newsmax. Our friends at Newsmax.
So Newsmax, and usually they're there and they're growing. Fox, of course, bigger than Newsmax. Newsmax making heroic effort, but there are times in which
we love. Newsmax. At this point, I can say I do turn to Newsmax first.
I turn to Newsmax first too because I don't want to be misled. I'd rather get the straight facts right away. But then a lot of times I'm not going to get it from Newsmax. The breaking story. I'll try to go to Fox. That'll be my second alternative. And then in a pinch, I'll go to CNN.
Well, here's what we got them now.
But there are times that Fox and Newsmax cover it and CNN doesn't. So it does even up to some extent.
It evens up with X.
Yeah.
Often X now, which is owned by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
We'll have users on the ground, for example.
Right now, sure. X is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's become X as Twitter was fabulous, except for its unbelievable censorship and bias. But it was fabulous in terms of the community. It was always the best, not the most popular, always the best at the communication of information. Unfortunately, with very heavy censorship. And even its censorship, because I've used them all, was less than some of the others. It was there, but it was less than some of the others. Now, X is what a wonderful, wonderful contribution to free speech Elon Musk made with X by liberating X. I mean, he's got to be one in the annals of heroes of free speech. Elon Musk also deserves a statue that they'll take down. Particularly if they put it in San Francisco, right? Imagine Elon's statue in San Francisco. Trump would have to put those guards around like they have at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, right? We met one of those guards the other day. They are really very fine young men. Shall we take a short break?
We should take a short break, and we'll be right back for more of what we call the fastest hour on the internet.
I haven't heard that in a while.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50%, and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani.
So shall we discuss the town hall?
Yeah.
Is that what we want to talk? Last night's town hall?
Yep,
And that was on CNN, right?
that's right. Here's a clip,
The
right?
impartial CNN. And so let's start with we're going to.
The border.
It was not. This one was known by even her fans. Even some Democrats said this was like word salad galore. So let's see exactly why.
In 2024, you talk about the bill you tried to get passed in 2021. That wasn't able to get passed. 2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration
But if
is
it was
low.
that
But hold
easy
on,
with
let me
that
finish.
executive action, why not do it in 2022,
True,
2023?
actually.
Because we were
What she's
working with
saying now
Congress
is
and
not
hoping that
true.
actually we could have a long-term
What
fix
about
to
your
the problem instead of a
CBP
short-term
program that
fix.
you
Couldn't have
lie
done
about?
one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action. Congress has the authority and the purse. I hate to use DC terms, but literally they write the checks. Part of the issue is in order to really
Well, how could
fix
Trump
the
cure
problem at
it
the border. I
without
was just at the
congressional
border recently
action?
talking
How
with
could you
border
undo
agents.
it without correction? What a damn liar she is. Go ahead, keep
You know what
lying.
they talk about? Yes, they are overwhelmed. They're working around the clock. And the other thing that they talk to me about, we need more judges down there to deal with asylum claims. We need more personnel down there to deal with processing. But Anderson, and that's where Congress kicks in terms of dedicating the resources to actually fixing the problem. We have dealt with it such that, to your point, we now, as of today, as of our visit, have lower undocumented immigrants and illegal immigration than Trump when he left office.
That's true.
But we need a permanent solution, and that requires bipartisan work.
Do you wish you'd done those executive orders in 2022?
You know, Anderson, you're a big damn liar, too. It's not true. You've completely excluded the CBP-1 program. The CBP-1 program lets about 1 million people in. And what it does is, so let's say you're in China. All you do is make an appointment. They don't even bother to check you out. When you get here, they ask you 4 questions. They let you in. And they bestow on you, I don't even know what it's called. It's not legal. It's not illegal. It's the thing that got Vance into the debate with the liar from CBS about whether people are legal or illegal. This is a program that has no congressional authority. Biden thought it up a year and a half ago, and it was going to limit illegal immigration. In fact, he wasn't going to do more than something like 1,000 a day or less. I mean, that's an awful lot anyway, but it ended up being 1.8 million. A lot of them from China. Now, it would stand to reason a lot of them would be from China because China paid them a lot of money. But they are not vetted, the people who come in. They make a little reservation online. You can't check their criminal records because China doesn't let you do that. Venezuela doesn't let you do that. So you don't know what you're getting. You let them in. And they are, they're illegal awaiting a hearing. And they're given a hearing 3 years from now. All of that doesn't happen at the border. So the numbers these big liars use are the number at the borders. But you got to add to the numbers that the lowest this program has been in its 2.5 year horrible history is 750,000. They're over 1 million. This year, in having reduced the illegals coming in, it'll be down to about 1.7 million, which if you take out Biden, is not only more than Trump, it's more than any president ever had in any year in American history. He when he went over 1 million, he exceeded any president. And he's never been below 1 million, including in this year that these lying scum are presenting to the American people in a false way. And Anderson Cooper tries to, but he's such a partisan and such a wimp. What else do we have of this ridiculous town hall meeting? You know what the conclusion of this was? Dana Trump-Ash, a CNN anchor, said, "What I'm hearing from people who I've been talking to, if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that." Yeah, she closed the deal. David Axelrod, Democrat political advisor. The things that would concern me is when she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, which is enormously misleading because what it really is the inability to reason rationally, which is the reason she failed the bar exam. And the reason that she can't be president, because she doesn't have the really proper capacity to analyze things. Intellectually deficient. Sorry, Kamala, but you're basically what they used to call, when I was a kid, a dope. And we know how you made it, Kamala. Hey, we talk real in Brooklyn. Then she was asked a question about Israel, which she then sidesteps by saying, I believe that Donald Trump is dangerous. Could we have that, Ted? Can we have that one? I thought that was one of the better indications of what a bull artist she is.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Want to take a break before we play that? We got a couple. We got to make some money, you know. They're coming after me so bad. We got to make some money.
We'll be right back.
New normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quicks. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
Moors? Well, magic machine. You get everything here. It saved me when we were in New York when they censored Newsmax. What did we do? We plugged in HDMI to the HDMI female, and we got the Newsmax. The communists couldn't keep it from us. I wonder if I do this. Oh, really? Oh, I'll report that. Okay. Oh, yes, of course. Yes. Mm-hmm. You know, you put it in the wrong side and you look like PJP. All the hair comes up. Whoop. Let me stop being stupid. And I'm going to be really serious. You know, thanks to the generosity of friends like you, who've been supporting Tunnel to Towers now, and now you're going to support it if you don't. Just recently, they were able to welcome U.S. Army Specialist Brett Menard, and it was welcoming him into a new mortgage-free smart home here in the state of Florida. Brett decided to enlist in the U.S. Army after being motivated by the terrible attacks of September 11, and he wanted to be part of something that truly mattered, and nothing matters more than our United States military. while on a road to a clearance mission in Afghanistan, Brett's vehicle was blown up by an improvised explosive device. In an instant, his life and his family's life changed forever. The blast left Brett a T4 paraplegic with traumatic brain injury, compartment syndrome in both arms, unable to use his legs, and severe internal injuries. He even needed a total facial reconstruction because his bones and teeth were shattered from the impact of the explosion. Despite his overwhelming challenges, Brett's spirit remained unbroken because of the support of friends like you, and of course his wonderful, wonderful family. Tunnel to Towers built him a specially adapted smart home that allows catastrophically injured heroes like Brett to live much more independently. America's heroes need your help now. Don't delay, more than ever. Just make sure you donate just $11 a month at t2t.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org. T, the number 2, T.org. Do it. Do it for yourself. And do it for the real heroes. And indicate you understand who the real heroes really are. So let's look at a couple of the things you're not going to see anywhere else or hear anywhere else, except on that small group you were trying to describe. And we'll find the right name for them. We'll work on that, Ted and I. Those are the people who actually bring you the news that is censored or seriously altered by the Marxists who control the industry. So, as I said, CBS is on a real downer, isn't it? From the debate in which they fact check incorrectly on both sides. In other words, they corrected falsely, and then they failed to correct other things that were false from the Democrat side. To the interview of the racial arsonist who has just written a book of racial arsony that was challenged by all indications, a left-wing CBS reporter for his failure to put in even a smidgen of the Israeli or Jewish part of the story. I mean, it's as if Israel just went into Gaza and started killing children for no reason. The way they present, police brutality, cops just shoot black people. They get up in the morning and they say, let me see, I'm going to shoot a black person today. And then they don't bother to tell you that, there were 15 police shootings in a year and 10,000 black on black shootings. That's never true, except to a statistician, that the loss of human life is significantly is mathematically insignificant. But it's a number that is. I mean, it's 0.15 or something like that. So, or a better way to focus on it in a realistic way, you'll get it in your head, is if you're the parent of a black young man in Chicago, the chances are overwhelming that he'll be killed by another black rather than a police officer. There's almost no chance he'll be killed by a police officer. And there's an enormous chance that he'll be killed by a person of his own race. And they largely vote for people of their own race who do nothing for them, except the people they vote for become millionaires. They don't. That's got to end, and I'm hoping it will now, because it is a form of modern slavery. So CBS has had all these problems, including the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen, which is taking Kamala's jackass answer to a question from a very fine reporter who pushed her, and substituting an answer from something else. So you think of the process of editing, which I try, I'm not good at it. So you got all these questions and answers. Usually when you edit and you try to be fair, you might take a very long answer and you might break it down. And in fact, when I first heard of this, I thought that's probably what happened. They found some place where she actually said something coherent inside the answer and pulled it out and took away this and that. They took the answer, and I'm trying to do it the way you would see it on a edit, right? There's the answer to the question. Out. Gone. No answer. And then they went somewhere else where there was an answer that kind of fit, I guess. And it was like very short because you can't get it to do this for more than a minute of something coherent. And they put it there. Completely 100% dishonest, indicating they have no respect at all for you, for the truth, or for themselves. And then the owner of CBS condemned it, but the scoundrels who did it are still there, still doing the same damn thing every night. Every night the news is being, they got caught doing what they do all the time because they've been allowed to become excessive, pathological partisans in an area in which the value of being fair-minded has to be led. It has to be controlled. It has to be developed. And just the opposite happens. I remember years ago when Bush defeated Kerry, when it was almost foregone conclusion the night of the election that Kerry would win because he was winning all of the exit polls. CBS forgot that exit polls don't decide elections, people do. I think that's when the Democrats decided to get big time into cheating, to try to make the exit polls real. I was on the set, and my wife at the time was in the control booth. And when they had to announce that Trump won whatever state put him over the top, I'm going to say Florida, but I'm not sure. The people in the booth started crying. They were crying, some hysterically. She was in shock. I mean, she was not involved in politics the way I was, and I don't. Why were they crying like that? Well, I mean, they're supposed to be as much as possible even-handed, and they were, pathologically emotionally involved on the Democratic side of the campaign. It's pathetic. So you can see what happened with CBS, right? It's not a news organization. It is in a different form, equivalent to a news bureau in a communist country. In the Soviet Union, they used to call it Pravda, and it's part of Pravda. It's an apparatchik of the Biden regime or the Democratic regime or whatever will be the prevailing Democrat, socialist, communist regime. Now, that goes so far as to the terrible calumny that's been done to the state of Israel. Over the years, the propaganda machine has presented the Palestinian Authority first as a moral equivalent of the state of Israel, and then as superior to the state of Israel. And the state of Israel became, in the modern version of Marxism, the colonizer, the oppressor. And the Palestinian Authority became the oppressed, the victim. The classical Marxism would be the bourgeois and the proletariat. So the bourgeois were the rich, controlling members of the Tsarist Russia, and the proletariat was everybody else who was their slaves. That form of communism they tried to spread in America, with heavy infiltration into the Wilson administration, heavy infiltration into the Democrat Party and the unions, many of which were founded by communists, like the teachers union. But their economic message didn't work. Even with the Depression, it didn't work because Americans have discovered a much stronger form of economy than anyone in the world has ever found. And yeah, sure, you could mislead large numbers of them, but not a majority of them. And quickly they found the dividing line that they could create in America and exploit, and it was race. So race and identity, and that became the dividing line. So it became the oppressed and the oppressor. And then in that version, the Palestinians are the oppressed, and Israel is the oppressor. Or in the Obama version of communism, the colonizer, because that came from his father, who he hardly knew but revered. His father hated America, hated England, hated Winston Churchill in particular, because he believed that they were colonizers of Africa. Israel is viewed in classic Marxism, as taught in our university, as a colonizer. Now, there are very serious flaws with that. Israel has never been a colonizer. There could be other things, but it's never been Israel did not capture the land of Israel. Israel has been there for 2,000 years plus. Jews have been there. It's the central place of their religion is Jerusalem. The city was captured by King David in around 2,000 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. And Jews began to control it, lose it, control it, lose it since then. In fact, you can't think of a ethnic group or religious group more connected with the land of we now call Israel than the Jews. Arabs too, but more so the Jews. Their Passover prayer, ceremony, liturgy ends with a salutation, a toast, a statement to being reunited in Jerusalem next year. That's only 1,500 years old. So the legal situation was not enforced on anyone. It was enforced by the UN. First, the League of Nations set up a kind of prototype for it. And then it was the Balfour Declaration, right? And then it worked itself out at the end of the war, and the English pulled out at the very end, creating a sort of underground war with the English. And eventually, the UN voted and gave the Jews that land as the Jewish homeland. From the point of view of the people voting on it, as a place so that Jews would never again be able to be eliminated like Hitler tried to do. From the Jewish point of view, they were just being given their homeland back that went back to King David 2,000 years ago. And then the day that they were declared independent, they were attacked by all of the countries. Do you want to show the map? By all the countries that surround them. And you can see just a few of them. You can see Lebanon to the north. You can see Syria over there a little bit to the east, northeast, right beyond Golan, which is the Golan Heights. You can see right below that Jordan, which is almost runs perpendicular with the state of Israel. And south of that, you see the great kingdom, wealthy kingdom of Saudi Arabia, right? And then if you go out again, you'll see Egypt on the other side. Now, that part of Egypt that we're looking at originally was going to be part of Israel. But when they settled the first war, they just left it with Egypt. I mean, it is desert. And then when Egypt attacked them in the 7 Days War, unexpectedly and by surprise, all the Arab countries attacked them at once from left and right. And I don't think they attacked them from the Mediterranean. And Israel won a resounding victory. Israel not only drove them out, they drove them back. You see that where it says Arab Republic of Egypt? The Jews captured all that. They were moved all the way back to Egypt. You see up there in the Golan, they were all the way into Syria, southern Lebanon. They gave it back in the name of peace. And then eventually, unwisely, in my view, they set up a Palestinian Authority, which is known as the West Bank and Gaza. Gaza is the little strip. And now let me see if I can use one of my, oh gosh, if I have one here. Let's see. Yeah, I'll need one of those pens. I don't think I have one with me. Yeah, not there, unfortunately. Oh, yes, there. Look, Ted is just a savior. Let's see if it works. We're going to have to do something with it, but we'll do it later. You can see it right now. So, that might work. It might, or it might not. So, right now, although the whole nation is in dispute, correct, right? The whole nation is in dispute. The really disputed territories are here. That's Gaza, okay? That is that's really where the name Palestine comes from. It was Palestine back in the Roman days. Palestine was a place. Palestinians were not a people until now. Arafat and people like that. Arafat was born in Egypt, and would tell you he was one of the first Palestinians. Israel's as a people, the Israelis have been around about 2,500 years longer than the Palestinians. And their claim on this land is monumental in comparison to the Palestinians. The Palestinians lived largely in Egypt and many, many in Jordan. In fact, at one point, Jordan expelled 1 million because they were killing people like they do in Israel, except Jordan hadn't become the victim of a massive public relations campaign, making them the bad guys. And they were capable of getting the murderers out of their country before they did any more damage, except having killed the king. Did you ever wonder, although in public schools now they won't teach you this, why does Egypt here and Jordan here not allow Palestinians to come in? Even now, at time of war, right? And at time of refugee, Kamala Harris wants to take you to the United States, but the King of Jordan will not take a single one, even though his wife is half Palestinian and a big supporter of the cause and massive anti-Semite. Because he's not going to let somebody who killed his grandfather because he's a smart guy. Now, so why don't they let him in Egypt then, you say, when many of them are largely Egyptian by ethnic background? Arafat was. They don't let him in Egypt because they were begun by something called the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is an organization formed to kill the president of Egypt, then Nasser, then Sadat, and eventually now Sisi. So he would be basically adding to the ranks of people who want to kill him. Now, they also want to kill Americans, but we seem to be okay with adding to the ranks of people who want to kill us. Maybe the Egyptians are just tougher and smarter than American Democrats, but they won't allow Palestinians there. Now, let in Palestinians, and they wiped out a whole large part of Lebanon, mostly the Christians. Just killed them. So Lebanon got rid of them. And that's what we're dealing with. And when you say, a two-state solution, one state would be the state of Israel. The other state would be a state that exists to destroy Israel. Now, how long is that going to work? And by the way, it's all a bunch of nonsense because the Palestinians will not accept the existence of the state of Israel. Nor do they really accept the existence of the United States. So when we talk about a two-state solution, we're talking about a state that will be an ally of our big enemy, Iran. Well, our big enemy, not Biden, Harrison. There is a Palestinian reporter for CBS who his name is Marwan Al Ghul. It's discovered that in May of 2022, this impartial journalist wrote 34 years of news coverage can be summed up. Are the Jews human like us? I'll read that again. This is a Palestinian reporter. And remember, there are all these people in this country that want to convince us, oh, there are many good Palestinians, very different than Hamas. Of course, it's the Palestinians that voted them in an office. It's the Palestinians who 84% of which said it was okay to kill Jewish women and children. It's the Palestinians, not just the Hamas, that Jordan and Egypt will not let in, even if they're not Hamas. And it's the Palestinians who were taught, like Marwan Al Ghul was taught, to kill Jews, to eliminate Jews. And then, of course, the very frequent, to the point of brainwashing effect of death to America. That's you and me. Maybe not Biden and those other ones, but I want to let Palestinians in. So this Marwan Al Ghul reports for CBS on all of this, and he's actually a friend of the terrorists. 34 years of news coverage can be summed up. Are the Jews human like us? This is in line with the UN literature that they study in their schools, which say the Jews are animals, no better than animals. The Jews are devils, and the big devil, you and me. So we're not. This isn't for Israel alone. When there's a country like this or Iran who now supports them that is dedicated to our destruction, we should be on the side of the people who are fighting them, not telling Israel, oh, be careful, don't kill the civilians, even if they put them in the way of where all the ammunition is. Oh, let them keep the ammunition. I mean, do you know that from before the time that Israel invaded Gaza, Biden, Harris, and the traitors in the Biden regime were seeking a ceasefire? This was a ceasefire when the only fire was Palestinians killing Jewish men and women. And in that part of the world, if you don't respond, they'll overwhelm you. I don't know. I have a new book coming out called The Biden Crime Family. I had an old book that was a Times bestseller. Times hated that. Named Leadership. And one of the chapters in it might be worth, maybe I should just republish the chapter. Stand up to bullies. Gosh, if you lived in the 20th century and you didn't figure that out, you're not smart enough to lead a country. Well, this is what's been going on for 4 years. We've been kissing ass. And when you kiss the ass of a bully, they just take everything, like Hitler did, like Stalin did, and like these terrorist animals are doing. So the only answer to this, and I think that will be the answer under a Trump administration, is let Israel do its job. And we're not really supporting them. We've given 14 billion to Israel, right? 14 billion to Israel, and we've given 160 billion plus to Ukraine. the country that is well known as, and often described as the second most corrupt country in the world. Whether it's second or first or fifth, I don't know. I do know that it's corrupt from top to bottom, and that the guy at the top is very corrupt in the sense that he's sitting on top of all of it, not knowingly using it as levers against the United States and its politicians. So, you get a lot of those senators, particularly Democratic senators and McConnell, that kiss up to him. Who knows what they did with Ukraine? We know what Biden did. Read the book. You'll see. A lot of money. A lot more to go. There's something called offshore bank accounts that our Treasury Department has protected for Biden, and so has Zelensky. No wonder he got everything he wanted. A little statement like, "Hey, Joe, I got all the pictures Giuliani doesn't have. Now you should see these pictures." Well, with all this going on, right? All this like distortion of America as a religious country, American education, public education, which was founded. I mean, we were originally a country of private education, which is like the movement of homeschooling now. And the education was done in the home and in the churches and in the community groups. And public education is a feature of about the 1850s, and really the large immigrant groups we were getting who needed to be taught civic virtues and civic values. And the purpose of public education, free public education, think about this now, was to create patriotic American citizens. Now they create people who hate America. So you say to yourself, well, gee, how did that happen to us? Was it just was it climate change or a lot of bad weather or the devil came in? No, it's really simple, very logical, actually. It's one of the major lessons, dictates of Karl Marx. Get control of the schools. Even bigger than that, get control of the children. By the time they're 3, we should start working on their being property of the state, not the parent. Isn't that what impelled Mr. Tampon Tim to create in Minnesota a haven for children who want to change their gender before they're even 18, to come there and be able to do it without permission of their parents, so long as they have the permission of the state apparatchiks? Doesn't that make them property of the state? This most important of decisions can be made with the loving state and not the horrible parents. Do you realize that this is the reason for all of the emphasis and money? I mean, there could be a good reason for it, but there isn't. Early education. It was the great desire shared by Stalin and Marx to get those kids at about 2 years old. They're getting them at 2 now and 3. And they're largely teaching them to hate America and disrespect their parents, to separate them from America, which is an obstacle to the development of communism. So now how does that bring us to trans? This is part of what Marx and Engels recommend for the takeover of a country: destroy its morality, confuse its gender, make people hedonists, remove any notion not just of God, but of ethics. And basically life should be the complete and absolute seeking of pleasure. And you should be entitled to be whatever you want to be. Not you should be judged by how much you contribute to your fellow man, how much you contribute to yourself. So the second part to why trans has developed so much. Marxism is part of it. The underlying impetus that it's created in challenging every fundamental virtue that we have, so they destroy us. But also another thing that runs right through all this, including communism, which is basically a very, very large, gigantic con operation. And that is the amount of money that you get for trans surgery. So in one particular case, Tampon Tim spent almost $500,000 of the money of Minnesota to allow for the transformation of a prisoner. Whack job DA when she was DA in San Francisco, even before others have gotten this far into communism, did a similar thing for a two-time murderer in prison. That's Kamala. Kamala is in favor, on record and in writing, of supplying all the money necessary for a prisoner to remove their genital organs. If you want to remove your penis and become a girl, they'll pay for it. And they have. And they had one notorious case of a guy who killed two people, a notoriously vicious murderer, who was saved from the death penalty, and then provided with having his genitals chopped off so he could be a girl and go into a far nicer prison. You ever think maybe that was the motive? I ain't no prisoners. I ran prisons. And you're serving that motive. But you're also destroying any form of morality, decency in a country. And you're blurring the most fundamental of lines that have defined society from before we were able to write. And without the slightest bit of understanding of what jarring effects that's going to have. Do you realize the ignorant arrogance in that? This human race has been divided by male and female from before recorded human history. And you, Kamala Harris, Tampon Tim, want to tell us, or how about your Supreme Court justice who can't define a woman? An illiterate in the Middle East 2,500 years ago could define a woman. And a Supreme Court justice can't define a woman? And we make that change in one generation without the thought of where it's come from and where it's taken us? First of all, for those who don't question that, it's a sign of your ignorance. For those who do it, it's a sign of your illness and the grave damage that you want to do to the structures that hold together a civilized society. When I heard Justice Jackson, Bendra Boopity Doop Jackson say that, in answer, I think it was Marsha Blackburn who asked the question. And she said that, she couldn't define a woman because she's not a biologist. I would say she just disqualified herself for the Supreme Court. I mean, we got to have a certain agreement on words. If we can't agree on the word woman, there are very few words we can agree about.
Definition for the word woman.
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of, can you provide a definition?
Really happened. And that woman is on the Supreme Court. Did that really happen? Sometimes I close my eyes and I say, that didn't happen. You cannot provide a definition of a woman? And you want to be on the Supreme Court of the United States? I don't know. So there is a study that has been in the making for, I think I'm right, 10 years. And the whole study, I think, was supposed to come out differently than it's coming out. It's a report from the UN, and this is an article by another remarkable reporter, Kirsten Fleming, columnist, really. And this is enormously troubling. And I don't want to make a mistake here because I'm not the most familiar with this subject, but I'm becoming very familiar with it. According to information received by 30 March 2024, over 600 female athletes in more than 400 competitions have lost more than 890 medals in 29 different sports. That's nearly 900 medals lost to biological males who identify as women. This was compiled by Reem Al-Salem, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. It says the invasion of biological men into women's sports has enabled policies implemented by international federation and governing bodies. You remember in 2022, Leah Thomas, formerly Will Thomas, transitioned and joined the UP Penn's women's swim team. I think the guy had done no better than coming in 400 or something. And all of a sudden, at 6'4", he won everything, including setting the record. I think the real turning point here is when Riley Gaines spoke out against it, right? And former President Trump is explicit in the fact that he opposes the abuse of women that's created by allowing females to have to compete, that requires females to have to compete with males. I mean, we have these volleyball team that basically breaks the jaw of the women in it because of the guy that's smashing down on them. And now we have college teams refusing to play against them and just forfeiting. Kamala Harris supports that. Kamala Harris supported gender surgery for prisoners and actually sat by while it was provided when she was district attorney. So she's quite familiar with it. When I tell you this is a turning point that we may not be able to turn back in America, I'm trying to show you this isn't loose rhetoric. This is backed up by actual frightening realities. Frightening realities. Now, this is contrary to the studies that have emerged in Europe, that this whole concentration on gender is completely created and extraordinarily dangerous. The theory was, and the theory really was, to make money and to make us communists. Don't make any mistake about it. But the way they covered it was to say there are all of these very, very delicate young people who have grave doubts about their gender, and they're going to commit suicide if you don't change it, and you don't give them hormones, and you don't chop off their genitals. So far now, all the studies that have come to light outside the United States show just the opposite. That the more you allow this to happen, and it's happening now at record levels, that people who undergo the transgender surgery commit suicide. Now, there's a study now that is in the hands of an American who has received a massive amount of federal money for one of these studies where people believe it shows exactly that. And she's holding it back She's holding it back because it says it'll weaponize the people who oppose this and want to be unfair to transgender kids. Maybe the other people want to save their lives and you want to kill them. And what allows you to hold it back? You got $10 million in taxpayer money. Let's name her. Her name is Dr. Johanna Olson Kennedy. She believes that the study at this point, which is 10 years in the making so far, would be weaponized because it doesn't show in any way that children who aren't given the gender change or the hormones commit suicide in any undue number. And I think, but we can't get a hand on it, it shows pretty much what the European studies do, that it actually creates more suicides. And now Olson Kennedy is one of the country's leading advocates for providing gender surgery to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old. She flat out admitted that the lack of mental health improvements borne out by the study could be used in court, that you shouldn't use beta blockers. And she's holding it back. That's science? Or is that the Fauci form of sell your soul to the devil for money science? Or sell your soul to communism? Or sell your soul to some form of Satanism? Or whatever the hell it is. The American people are pretty much okay on this, and they're going to be even more okay on this when they see all the studies. 68% of U.S. adults are against providing puberty blockers to children identifying as wanting to change their sex until they become adults. And 58% oppose hormone treatments, even for kids as old as 17. This is beginning to turn based on the truth, but it's been very hard getting the truth out. And a lot of lives have been sacrificed on the way to it. And the sooner and the faster we do that, the better. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by electing Trump. We elect Kamala, and we go way back. We go way back to women's swimming being destroyed, women's basketball being destroyed, women being destroyed, and being unable to define what they are. You want that. And you want this complete, total intellectual dishonesty? In April, England's National Health Service disallowed puberty blockers for children following a 4-year study conducted by an independent researcher named Dr. Hilary Cass. For most people, a medical pathway will not be the best way to manage their gender-related distress. 4 out of 5 children questioning their gender will grow out of it and accept their bodies ever without any medical intervention. It's been that so forever. That's an English doctor, and in England, it's being all prohibited. They're going back to a decent, normal life for children. Please, God, do that for America. Now, you get a chance to do that. As John Kennedy said in his first inaugural address, and only inaugural address, here on earth, the work of God is truly our own. You know, God makes us with free will, and we make our choices. Here's a free will choice. Vote for Trump, not for Kamala. She's an enormously destructive woman, guided by so many things, including her father's philosophy of communism. And she's been a truly horrible public servant, where she failed at everything that she attempted. So let's pray. This is where we're going to get our help, because we need God back. We got to let them know we want them back. So I always ask you to pray for those that are in great danger in Ukraine and great danger in Israel and great danger in Iran. And pray for us now as we get down to 12 days before this election that we've got the will, that we've got the wisdom, that we've got the moral resolve that our parents and grandparents have to save this country when it needs saving. This time it needs saving at the ballot box, as it has never before. So you go get 10, 20 of your friends, and before you come back and watch me tomorrow night, go call them and tell them to go vote. God bless America. We'll talk to you tomorrow night at 7 on Frank Speech Network. You can get us on X there too, and then X here for the 500 and something show of America's Mayor Live.
We have a big focus group special tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, we're going to have a focus group special.
Right here.
And we're going to see how the people of West Palm Beach and various areas here in this swing. But West Palm Beach is purple. It's purple. Palm Beach may be Republican, but West Palm Beach is purple and usually votes Democrat. So let's see how it's going.
Should we try to zoom in, since we can do Zoom calls now? Maybe some focus group participants from the swing states.
Yeah, we'll do that too.
Yeah, so we'll have them video in. We'll have our live audience here.
See, the genius is creating it.
But we got to have it right, because those are the states that we want to hear from.
Okay.
Michigan, Pennsylvania.
Well, they're pretty. So it's Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin.
Yeah, and by the way, there are people down here almost every.
Those are the key ones. I mean, you can add a few to that, but if you really want me to tell you what are the key ones, it's those three. God bless America. See you tomorrow. Bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.
Food.
Can you close in if it's a far?
Are they being helpful? Oh, good.
I assume she's young. Big young. It's been great. Ari.
Ari.
A-R.
Nice.
I know her name from the email.
Do they want the speech before? I mean, I'm willing to do that. I used to do that with it, I used to do that with my keynote.
Check on AI too. Say patriotic speech, 3 minutes.
Oh, that's fun.
Can you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
You want to know how to speech?
Huh?
No.
No. I had this vision that me and Ted do a bunch of different 3-minute versions of what, and we can see what stirs our emotions the most. But you could go 5.
Yeah, that's not, whatever.
Well, there are several things that I can use with 3 minutes that would key to me, and that would be the changeover in New York on crime, September 11th. Things that would have more emotion coming from it.
Rob Conklin? Are we still on air?